Okay, welcome to the September meeting of the Richmond Digital Photography Club. Glad you could all make it. I missed last month. I had some personal family business I had to attend to up in Pennsylvania, but we got that taken care of. So I'm glad to be back. Sorry I missed last month's presentation. Does anybody have any business to bring up?
This is what I'm making fun of bird books, taking up bird books to the library. I know we have some burgers here, so if anybody wants one, for yours,
Okay, Anita?
If anybody brought anything for the matter, I might do a photo from it and I'll take a movie to them.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about ahead of the meeting? I have a question I'd like to ask, and I'll explain why later. Do you have insurance on your camera? You do? You do? I highly recommend it. I don't, and it costs me. Dropped it into surf. I put it in a bag of rice overnight to dry out. Also under the theory that during the night, Asians would come and repair it and take the rice as payment. That didn't happen because they had all been taken by ice. So I had to buy a new camera. And what? Well, it was an R5, and I replaced it with an R5. I decided between the R5 and the R5 Mark II, just because I was so familiar with it, and I didn't feel like spending an extra $1,000 plus for the new one. But camera, lens, instantly dead, instantly. So I am in the process of looking for a good insurance for my photography equipment. So I was lucky. There's times that I've been out there doing this, and in addition to having my camera with a wide angle lens on it, I would also have my camera with a telephoto lens hanging. And when I fell into the surf, 2 cameras would have died. So I have to get insurance.
I have a question. I know the professional bond association had insurance, but I think that's theft insurance, not necessarily down.
Yeah, instead. I watched a YouTube video yesterday of someone that had sent, it was a brand new Leica, was a month old and had a problem, so he took it to a local UPS store. And evidently it was stolen. And TPA paid them off. And so they never figured out where the camera went.
So it insures against theft, but doesn't insure against falling in the surf.
I don't know.
And you know, is that the only kind of insurance that you can get? The only source of insurance with PPA? Is there other sources of?
There are other insurance. I mean, I think you can get a rider on your homeowner's policy.
Yeah, I've got, my camera's equipment is insured through State Farms.
Right.
And it's not very expensive, it's like, you know, maybe $100 a year or less.
Would it have covered what happened to me?
I suspect so, yeah.
Okay.
I got pretty fine print. It is for my cameras.
Linda?
The PPA insurance is I think up to $15,000 a year. And it's $325 membership for PPA. But you get a lot of really good benefits, you know. In addition, insurance is just one reason that some people do join that group. You have to look into it to see all the details of the show.
Sure.
Over the years, I've had various insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing I always ask about the cover camera equipment. And I
found that all of them have said yes, up to $5,000. Now, $5,000 doesn't cover all the equipment I have, and probably the same with you guys. It doesn't. But I'm going along the idea that if anything happens, it's going to be like you, one camera, one lens or whatever, and not everything that I have.
Yeah.
So you should call your insurance company and ask them,
Yeah,
you know, how much am I covered for?
Yeah.
I've just had a loss.
Mirrorless cameras, $5,000 could be a starting point.
Well, that's true, but on the other hand,
He's already in the situation where he's lost equipment, had to replace it. $5,000, I'm sure, is going to be, you know, comforting and didn't have to.
yeah.
be
I spent replacing it, camera, well, the 5D, or I mean, the R5 that I bought came with an adapter that lets my EF lenses fit. So my other lenses, I had a 16 to 35 millimeter lens. So all those were together. So replacing all of that, I got a couple of extra batteries and stuff. It was about $5,200 replacement.
Yeah.
So, yeah, $5,000 would have helped.
Well, even if it were 10,000, getting 5,000 back, it's going to be better than
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
Tom, was it something dramatic?
Pardon?
Your fall into the surf, was it something dramatic or were you just careless?
I had my camera set up on a tripod. I was photographing the sunrise at Kitty Hawk Pier. And it was not a bad sunrise. And I had gone with my 16 to 35 so I could get closer to the pier and kind of fill up the frame. And I just had an extra large wave kind of swamp me, kind of hit me from behind. And, you know, the sand went out from under my feet. I lost my balance. That tripod fell over. I fell over, and I immediately got back up. But it was too late. It had been swamped. Huh? Yeah, memory cards were fine. I got the pictures out, so I did save that. But you know, the electronics in both the camera and the lens were just gone.
Did you get it under the work picture?
No, no. I wish I had. Okay, so I'd like to start with Eric Franks today. He's going to give us a talk about exposure and light meters. Okay, thank you.
Well, good morning to those I haven't said good morning to already. I think where I'd like to start though is not talking about the light meter per se, but just generally about exposure, because I know there's probably a lot of you who don't have a light meter. And there's probably a lot of you who have a light meter but don't use it. And at least one Kemp I know has a light meter but doesn't know how to use it. So I figured that's probably why he invited me, so that he can figure out how to use it. But the obvious question, I think, would be, we have a light meter in the camera. Why would we go to the expense of getting another light meter or even take the time to use it? So just to address that a little bit to begin with, I'd like to start there and then move into the light meter and what it can do for you. And maybe even some of the questions. I'm happy with the photographs I get right now. Why should I get another piece of equipment? I'm not here trying to sell the idea of light meters. I think what I would like to do is just go through the comparison of what you're doing today. And if you had a light meter and knew what it could do and how to use it, would that change the quality of your images? And would it change maybe more so your thinking on exposure and ultimately how a light meter might be able to help you? One of the exercises I went through this morning was I got my camera to prepare for coming here today and talking to you. And one of the things I was looking at specifically was the metering modes. And I have a couple of Canon mirrorless cameras. And typically, the one I was looking at this morning anyway, the metering modes was evaluative. And I think for the Nikon users, it's called matrix. I don't know if Sony and everybody else, all of the other manufacturers have different names for it. But I guess you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about matrix or evaluative. That's the widest gamut of where it's looking at. It also has center weighted, it has spot, and it has another one I can't remember the name of right now because I never use it anyway. So the question I would ask you is, which of those do you use, or do you switch from one to the other depending on the circumstances and what you're photographing? Or are you just locked into one metering mode? Anybody going to give me an answer?
I use value to, but my photography trip earlier this year was bird photography in Costa Rica, and I switched to spot metering to be able to get the exposure directly on the bird.
Okay. Yeah.
Other than that,
Does everybody else just pick one and stick with that? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I use spot meter a lot too. I must admit that I don't use all of them. But the exercise I mentioned this morning in looking at them was I took a photograph on evaluative. I took this without moving the camera, the same photographing used center weighted. I used spot, and the other one I can't remember the name of. I did that as well. And then I looked to see what the camera was telling me about exposure. And everyone had a different exposure. The ISO was the same, the aperture was the same, but the shutter speed changed in all. It went from 1/15 to 1/10 to 1/6. And the other one was something lower than that. So what that's telling us, I think, is that if you use the metering mode that's appropriate for whatever it is that you're photographing, like going to spot metering for birds, going to center weighted, let's say for backlit subjects, your exposure is going to be different. And that's probably important because every time you're taking a photograph, I'll bet money that you want the best exposure that you can possibly get. So if you don't, let's say you're in evaluative all the time, your exposure could be off for whatever it is that you're photographing. And I've talked about this with other people, and the answer always comes back, I can fix it in post. You know, and if that's what you like to do is spend a lot of time with the computer, go for it. And the other thing that's important there, I think, is if you're looking for consistency in your photography, you have to know what's going to change if you're photographing a bird that's in bright sunshine and another one that's maybe on a branch of a tree that's with a lot of shade. If you look at exposure as well, the exposure is going to impact your color rendition. And if you want to get good color, you've got to get the exposure right as well. And I can show you an example of what I mean by that. Okay. Here's an example of a pure white piece of foam core and a very black little case here. How many of us in the room would say, I mean, the white's looking okay, but the black is kind of gray. And why is that? Well, we know that cameras, when they're figuring out what the exposure should be, and we're trying to get that little needle in the viewfinder on 0. It's going and it's saying, hey, look, you've got a white dynamic range here. And what I want to do is, excuse me a second. I'm kind of lost here a little bit. What it's trying to do is say, okay, everything I want to shift into that middle of the zone system, the 18% gray or 15% gray or whatever you want to call it, and get it in the middle there. Because Ansel Adams and who was the other guy that developed this with Ansel? Yeah, they come up and they said that the zone system is probably a great way of getting a good exposure to start with. So camera manufacturers say, okay, if it was good enough for Ansel, that's what we're going to do when we're figuring out exposure. We're going to try and move everything into that middle gray. And that's why that black case that I had there is coming up and looking gray, because it's going to do that. It's going to say, okay, the whites aren't white. It's kind of middle gray. The blacks aren't really black. I want to squeeze that down to that dynamic range. And what happens is that we don't get a perfect exposure. We get something that's going to be close, but it's not perfect. And then we can take it in and fix it in post. The problem with that is that we end up having to fix something in post. If we want blacks to be black and we want whites to be pure white, we have to do something in post-processing. This isn't an Ansel Adams. I looked to try and get an Ansel Adams example of showing exactly what he did. This is somebody else. But by using the zone system and your camera by default, you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to say this should be really black, this should be really white, and all the individual things. And there's an easier way of doing it. And we'll get into that when we talk about the light meters. But it causes you to take time and effort to go in and fix your exposure. I read something the other day that somebody who had worked with Ansel Adams for 5 years working on the negatives, and he said he can't remember ever Ansel Adams taking a negative that he had shot and making prints from that without spending hours in the darkroom working on it. Well, we don't spend hours in the darkroom now, but we do spend time. If you go out and you shoot 100, 200 shots, you're going to go through every one of them to fix the darks, the lights, the mid-tones, stuff like that, if you don't have to, So let's go back a little bit to so as I said on this one, I took the white foam core, I took the black bag, laid them down, got the camera, and centered the needle for exposure dead on the 0, which is that zone 5, and took this shot. This shot, I took my light meter and said, okay, what does the light meter tell me I have to do? And you tell me which one looks better. I've got whites and I've got blacks. And this one, if I'm taking the photograph and using the meter, I don't have to fix anything in post. And just an anecdote on that, on Friday, I was telling Bruce that I had a photo shoot on Friday and used the meter, got the exposure for it. It was a portrait work I was doing. I must have I think it was about 245 shots that I took. Started off with my meter reading, set it in the camera, and forgot about exposure after that. When I went into post, I didn't have to do anything with exposure at all. I was working with changing some crops, maybe put a little bit of vibrance in or whatever, but I don't have to worry about exposure because it was already set. So just an aside on looking at it as well, exposure, I think you'll agree, also affects color. I mean, you saw on the previous one there, if I'm getting a washed out picture, obviously the colors are going to be washed out as well. So not only are you changing exposure, you might have to be fooling around with colors as well. The other tool I use, just as an aside, is what's it called? The passport color checker. And doing this, I do some commercial work for the people I was with on Friday. And the very first time I did work for them, I was getting good exposure, but I didn't use the passport color checker. And my client was looking at the photographs, and in about 10 seconds, they said, that's not the right colors. So I learned the lesson, make sure to take the passport color checker. Sorry? Oh, okay. Passport color checker, X-Rite, I think it is, that produces this. And what you do with it is the first shot you take, you get your model or whatever it is that you're photographing, and you put that in the photograph. And there's a little piece of software that is a plugin with Lightroom. And you use that little piece of software and it creates a profile. Do you all use Lightroom? No. One person does, 2 people, 3. Yeah, you go. Here we go. Okay. So you already know that Adobe gives you 6 profiles that you can use to adjust the color of the photograph that you've taken. It's up in the right-hand side. It's like 4 little squares in a square. And you click on that and it'll show you the 6 standard profiles. Landscape, portrait, different things like this. This one is exact for the photograph that you've taken because you've photographed it. And what this does, these are pre-measured colors. I don't know how they do that, but they get these colors so that they're exactly right. And I click on this thing and then sync it to all of the images that I have. And I know that, for instance, the pink shirt is going to come out exactly that pink. It's not going to come out close to the pink. It's going to be exactly like that pink. And I've never had trouble with a client after I said, oh, my bad, because their products are going to show up exactly like they would show up if you're just looking at the product. So with the light meter in this, it saves me a lot of hassle. Yes, when you buy this, you get a piece of software that allows you to create the profile for what you're photographing. And it goes in there where you would pull down the Adobe profiles. That'll pull down as well, and that'll be exactly right.
I've never. Like, stop it. How's it?
Okay, that's the next bit we're going to get into. Okay, but let me say first, just before we go into the meter specifically, it's just a pet peeve of mine. So indulge me. so many times, I've been talking with, other photographers and explain some of this stuff, and they'll come back and say, I don't need all of that. I can fix it in post. And me looking at that, as soon as they use the word fix, they're admitting that there's something wrong with the image that they've taken. I prefer to think of it as that if I get a good exposure, get a good image, I can go in and I can enhance the image, be a little creative of whatever it is. But I don't want to go and say, hey, you know, what all that stuff I did with the camera, it's not right. I'm going to have to do something to fix it. So it's a mindset, I think. And if you get the mindset that you want to get the best image that you can, you're moving on to something different. You're starting off with a better base than an image that you're already in your mindset saying, I've got to do something with this to fix it. The exposure is not right, the color's not right, or whatever it might be. I think, you know, we're all better off if we get the right mindset before we click that shutter button. So, okay, Dave?
You always do, and you have Canon, I have Nikon in the major store evaluated. Exposure, are you always in that mode?
No.
If you use, I know you might talk about this, but a lot of people and I use aperture prior to light.
Yeah.
Would you still use the light meter in that mode?
Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time, when I'm shooting, pretty much regardless of the circumstance, I'm in spot meter mode. I don't always have a light meter with me. And I know that we've got to protect the highlights. So the way I do it is, and I'd say it's a landscape. Landscape photography is not my thing, but I do see things alike and do that. And we have a situation like today. It's nice and sunny, bright, everything's perfect. And I got a nice blue sky, and I've got puffy white clouds. I'll take the spot meter and I'll spot on the brightest part of the cloud that I can find. And then I'll take that, because I know that shooting to the right with that spot meter reading, that everything else is going to go and drop to the left. Now, there might be some things that get so dark, so contrasted, that I might have to do something to enhance it in Lightroom. But it's not an image that, oh, geez, this is totally wrong. I've got to fix this, fix that, and the next thing. So typically, and I can't say 100%, but probably 90% of the time, I'll shoot in spot meter mode and push it to the right. Now that isn't going to change if I'm doing portraits, because what I can do if I don't have my light meter is I can look for the brightest part of the image. There might be no sky in it or whatever I'm doing it. And like say it's a face and there's a hot spot or something on the face, I'll meter on that. So I'm always in spot meter mode. I'm always looking for the brightest point that I can get. Now, I will admit that there's other ways of doing that. But I know that since I changed to doing that, when I'm taking landscapes or outside, I don't get blown out skies anymore. I used to get a lot of blown out, just white, gray skies, and I don't get that anymore. That's the way I do it. When I'm doing it with, I'm jumping ahead just a little bit, but when I have my light meter and I'm doing the same thing, I'll use the spot meter on the light meter rather than the camera. And the reason I do that is that your camera is probably when it's in spot mode, looking at a 4-5 degree area on whatever it is you're photographing. With this, I'm down to a 1 degree. So when I'm looking at it and looking through there, I can move it around that big fluffy cloud to get the absolute brightest point and then take the reading. So that helps a bit.
Use spot me
Yeah.
as well as spot timer.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's gonna, on the, I'll get to that in a bit, but it's a little bit different on here. For spot, if I have that with me, I don't care what the camera's telling me, I'm gonna go by this.
My camera's got zebra mode, you ever use that? Shows the little black and white stripes where it's overblown. And
Yeah.
you can just tone it down,
Yeah,
increase the shutter speed or change your eyes over.
yeah, and that's why I said there's other ways of doing it. I find that using spot meter is easiest for me.
Steal your thunder here, what helped me to understand what a light meter did. A fellow told me a long time ago, the first thing he asked me, he said, "Do you play an instrument?" I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Well, remember when you tuned up, you always, somebody played the letter A, or I'm sorry, the note A, and everybody tuned to that." He said, "Well, a light meter is like the letter A." He says, when you point your camera, light meter, whatever it is, it's always going to give you one thing, the A. He says, now change the letter, the note A to middle gray. No matter where you have that light meter pointed, okay, if you have a spot meter, whatever, it's always going to give you middle gray. And that's what you have to work around, to know where the middle gray is.
Yeah. The fundamental difference between your camera's meter and a light meter, I've shown you the results. Your camera meter is reflective. So it's measuring whatever light is being reflected from your subject. Now that can change if I'm photographing somebody in a black shirt, black pants. The obvious example is we're doing a wedding and you have the groom in a black suit and you have the bride in a white dress. Which is going to reflect more light? The white dress, right? And if you're trying to get that photograph, what your camera is going to tell you, unless you make adjustments, is that the white dress is actually gray and the black suit is not black, it's more gray, right? And that's reflective metering that's happening there. What the the light meter does, it measures the light that's falling on your subject. It doesn't care what color it is. It doesn't care if it's black. It doesn't care if it's white or middle gray or whatever. It's going to tell you what to set your camera based on the light that's falling on the subject. And that's why you get this difference. Sorry. That's the photograph that's been taken based on the light that was falling on the white card and the black bag. This is what's happening with the reflective light. It's not going to be the same. So if you're not using a meter, you have to compensate for whatever's being reflected. Now you get to, question.
Did you put actually spot meter on the whiteboard or the case?
I didn't use spot metering. I used evaluative because I wanted to.
Well, that extension brought, we're taking that.
Yeah.
And you were using another meter. What would you?
I would have gone with the white dress because digital cameras, you have to get everything over to the right. The brightest part should be over to the right. So that means if I take the reading on the white dress, everything else that's not white is going to fall into its correct place going down there.
So did you meter on the whiteboard?
No, I was back enough that the reason I used the value because it's the widest range of metering in the camera. So I was far enough back that it was taking some white and some black. If I used spot metering on the black only or the white only, I would have got a totally different reading.
So did you use evaluative on the wedding, the white dress versus black?
Well, you certainly could, but I think what you're going to do is get this. You're not going to get black blacks and you're not going to get white whites.
Then why wouldn't you meter on the white?
Because I wanted to come here and show you the difference between what the camera sees and what the light meter sees. So the example was, this is what the camera thinks it should be, and this is what the light meter is telling you it should be. You get the difference?
So
reflective metering. And this is incident, what they call incident reading. So if you were doing a wedding and you got the groom and the bride, which one would you use? The camera's meter where it's trying to squeeze everything into a middle gray, or hey, this is what's really happening. This is what you see. Yeah, because and you thinking about taking photographs, if you got something that's white, fluffy clouds, bright dress, whatever it is, it's the brightest thing in your image. You want to get that pushed over to the right hand side. If you get it and you say, okay, I'm going to line this up in the camera dead on 0, the camera's saying, I want to squeeze that black to the left and I want to get the white to the right. And it gives you that muddy gray look. You probably don't notice that as much when you're taking regular photographs because you get color in there. And when you look at the back of your camera, what you're looking at is a JPEG rendition. Do we all shoot in RAW? Okay, what you're actually looking at is a JPEG rendition. The camera said, you know, this is how I'm going to process your image to show you on the back of the camera. And because it's a JPEG and because it's somebody who's writing code for the camera said this is how things should look, it's going to probably look pretty good to you. If you look at the histogram you're looking at there is for that JPEG, not your raw image, it's for that JPEG. And to get to the JPEG, it's already been processed. What you're looking at may not be really accurate.
Complicated, maybe you're gonna talk about it. So you do all the spot metering and then you're indoors taking a wedding picture and you want to use a flash on TTL, how does that impact your readings?
Okay, I'm going to get there. I will get there. So if everybody's ready for me to move on, I've already completed the first little bullet item on my list. So it's important to know that, yeah, the meter in your camera is reflective, and that's what it's going to do. And if you went with a light meter, saves you a lot of work down the road because you don't have to fix anything.
I'm sure you'll get to this house quick.
You hope. Okay, so that's reflective versus incident. Cameras reflective, light meters are incident.
If you use a light meter and the camera is reflective.
Yes.
And the light meter can also be in a reflective mode for the readings be the same. in
No.
that situation?
No.
Okay.
I've tried that and it's not far off, it's pretty close. But it's not always the same. I'll get back to that one a little later when I get into talking about these things. Anyway, just to get to where we're going to talk more about the light meter. This is the one that I use. It's 758 L758DR by Seconic. When I got this one, this was top of the line. The one that Kemp has is now top of the line. It's basically the same meter, except this one's got buttons and dials. The one that Kemp has is all digital. It's digital touch screen, but it's basically the same thing as this one. You can start off one like this that is, you know, like a very basic light meter. Won't have the bells and whistles that are on this one. You can go up to a kind of a middle range one that does a lot of the stuff this one does, not all of it. And then, as I said, you can go top of the line with this one. I've seen light meters on Amazon, B&H, Adorama type thing. They start off, they're pretty much like this, they're at $65. This one was $629. And the reason, it's everything. Even if you're into cinematography, this will do that for you. The reason I bring that up is that if you're interested in getting a meter to do stuff, there's a wide range of capabilities with them. And I certainly wouldn't imagine that you're all going to want to go out and spend $600 on a light meter, because it's a bit like cameras. At least I find anyway, when I'm looking at buying a camera, there's just such a wide or large list of features the cameras do, and I probably use about 5% of it. You know, I don't do video, I don't do a lot of the stuff that you get all packed in, and that's basically what's in here. But I'm going to use this one as the kind of demo, if you will, because there's no good me telling you, oh, well, this is what that does, and then we're done, because you might want to in the future get something that's a little more capable. So if I tell you everything's in here, you can decide if you want to get a light meter, what you like, what you don't like, and say, hey, 90% of that in here, I don't need, let me go and get one of those. But then you're making an informed decision rather than saying, geez, you never told me that it could do this, that, and the next thing. So I'm going to use this one as the example. I'm going to split the rest of this into two sections. One is for ambient light metering, and then the second part we'll get in, we'll talk about flash and other types of lighting. Yeah. Okay. Just while he's doing that, am I really confusing everybody? Because if I am, I'll take the blame for that, because what we're talking about here is really not that hard. It's one of those things, which there are many in photography, that your brain's like in a fog, and then when it clicks, you say, oh, gee, that wasn't so difficult. Anyway, ambient light and the light meter. I'm not going to talk about the camera's light meter anymore. We're just going to talk about how to use this and what it does. Because we know now, or at least we should know now, that this is going to give you a better, more accurate reading than the camera. And that's all we need to say there. Okay. A lot of people that I talk to about light meters never realize that a light meter is important for taking ambient. A lot of them say, oh, well, that's for flash, right? Well, no, you can do a lot with a light meter in ambient. Let's just take an example that I'm going to take a photograph of Ling. I can go over to Ling and I'm looking at her. I've already analyzed in my mind where the light's coming from, how it's, you know, and I might say, turn your head a little left, a little right or whatever. But now I want to get the exposure for the camera. So I'm not going to tell you button by button what I'm doing here for a couple of reasons. One is that going through, there's more than 3 types of light meters. The old ones that have the little needle, and they all operate differently. So there's no good me explaining what button I'm pressing here, because the one you get might not have that button or whatever. But I just want to go with the concept. The first thing I would do is the lumisphere. I'm going to raise the lumisphere. You can raise it or you can lower it. Okay. So if I'm in the raised position, it's going to meet at a light in a 180-degree circle. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I set my ISO. I'll set the shutter speed that I want. And then I'll come and I'll just click the button. And it's saying that the shutter speed here, based on these lights anyway, based on what I've got here, is going to be, actually I set it up for aperture, but it's going to tell me what to put in the camera. It's going to be the same ISO, is going to be the same aperture, and it's going to tell me the shutter speed. And when I put that into the camera and take the photograph, well, we already know the reason we're using this is we want a better exposure than the camera would give us. But that little needle in the viewfinder or on your LED screen that we usually try to get to 0. A lot of my photographs, it's going to be off the charts to the left or off the chart to the right. I totally ignore that because I know the camera's lying to me anyway. And that's, no. I didn't want to get into that one, but yeah, that it's not going to tell you what the color temperature is going to be. Up here. Okay. I know when I'm photographing people what the aperture I want for depth of field. I know the ISO that I usually shoot at for people. And I can calculate, this will allow you to flip-flop back, calculate what the shutter speed is going to be, or you can set the shutter speed and it'll tell you what the aperture is going to be. I usually prefer to set the aperture and go in shutter speed mode so that it tells me what's happening there.
All 3 things. I mean, must you set the ISO, and must you set your aperture? I'm up here. Or can you just?
You must set the ISO.
I'm sorry?
You must set the ISO, but you choose whether you want it to tell you the aperture or tell you the shutter speed. And then you set 2, and well, one of the aperture depends on how you like to shoot and what it is that you want. That's right. Yeah. Now, typically when I'm shooting Ling or anybody else, I'm going to set my ISO because I know what I want that to be. And I'll set the shutter speed. And the reason I do it that you can, as I say, you can flip it, you can have it tell you what the shutter speed is if you put the aperture in. But the reason I do that is I'm less concerned at times what the aperture is going to be. But I do like to make sure that the shutter speed is what I decide it's going to be. The reason I do that is if I'm shooting with an 85 millimeter lens on the camera, I want my shutter speed to be about 125 because I'm old, I'm shaky, and I want to make sure that I get a pretty sharp photograph. If I set the aperture and taking photographs, not only of Ling, but other people, and I say, okay, I want it to be 5.6, 6.3, 8, whatever it's going to be. And it comes up and it tells me, oh, it's going to be a 40th of a second. And I've got an 85 millimeter lens on there. I'm not confident I'm going to get a sharp photograph. But other people do different things. Somebody wants to do aperture priority in the camera. And it's set at 8.0, then, you know, you can certainly make the light meter do that for you.
So that, yeah, you could raise your right. Yeah.
Absolutely. But when it comes to when it's done that, then ISO is probably my go-to change. And all I have to do is say, okay, if I change the ISO on here, it's going to tell me what the shutter speed and aperture, how that's going to change. No, I don't have to take another reading because the ISO is going to change either the shutter speed or depending on what mode you're in. Quick thing about, sorry.
This game, where you can say, okay, with this aperture, I want this shutter speed, and it tells you the ISO.
No.
Okay, you have to, okay.
Yeah. It's going to tell you, and what mode you're in, it's going to tell you either the shutter speed or the aperture, but changing the aperture is going to be manual. And if I'm in the mode, just to make sure we understand, if I'm in the mode that it says, you tell me what the shutter speed's going to be, and it's not where I want it to be, then that's when you up the ISO. Yes. I bred because I wanted to do that for the times I didn't have the meter with me. In reading about it, generally, not everybody, but generally, they're not very accurate. The other thing about that is that as you go through from this guy to this one, you won't, if you took a meter reading with all of those, you might get slight variances. They're not all going to give you the same meter reading. The cheaper ones are less accurate than the more expensive ones. It's like pretty much everything, right? Now, another thing that you can do with this is take meter readings in subjects other than Ling. If you're doing flower photography, you can get more accurate colors and better readings. You know, take the reading on the flower or whatever, from all the way up to doing landscapes. That's a good question. A lot of people think that with these things, you have to be right next to your subject. As long as the light that you're metering is the same light that's on your subject, you don't have to be close at all. you're standing out in the field. There's a barn, the ubiquitous barn that's out in Montana. In what's the name of it? Yeah, well, anyway, like the barn's half a mile away, and I'm standing out. The sun's on the barn. I'm standing in the sun. I can take a meter reading, and it's going to be exactly the same as that because it's incident meter is not taking the reflective light; it's taking the light, measuring the light that's falling on it. Now, if there's a tree there, and I said, geez, it's hot and bright here, let me stand under the tree, and you're in the shade, it's not going to work. You have to be in the same light that your subject's in for taking ambient.
You took the reading on lane,
Yeah.
you were taking a reflective reading, right?
No, incident meetings. Your camera will take the reflective reading. This is the incident. This is reading the actual light that's falling on. Yeah.
If you stood where you are and took the reading on lane, would it be different?
No, it'd probably be the same
Because of the light.
because the light's all around here. So that now we can go all the way from taking ambient readings, flowers, stuff like that. A lot of people use these to take photographs of landscapes. And you've got a choice with the landscapes. You can do what if Jackson Hole, I was thinking, you know, that everybody's taken a photograph of that barn out in Jackson Hole. So you can do that with ambient as long as you're in the same light as the landscape. Same type of thing that it could be the Rocky Mountains that are out there, and the mountains are 25 miles away. As long as you're standing and they're getting the same light that the mountains are getting, you can take an ambient reading from where you are and be confident that it's going to be a good exposure. The other thing with these more expensive is got the spot meter, and you can use that to do things like landscapes. Now, when you're in spot meter mode, you're using reflective light, but it's a 1 degree spot rather than the 4 or 5 spot. So how would you use that? If I'm looking at a scene that has high contrast, I can take a meter reading of that fluffy white cloud and put it into memory. This has got a memory. So I can put that in memory. Then I can look and say, you know what? That looks like a zone 5. That's like a middle gray. I'll take a spot meter reading of that and put it in memory. And you know what? Down there, down in the valley there, gee, that looks really dark. Let me take a spot reading of that one, put it in memory. And then it's got a little button here that says average. It's like doing the HDR in the spot meter. And I've done that I don't do it a lot because obviously I said I'm not a landscape photographer, but I've done that on occasion when I have been taking scenics, and it comes out pretty darn good. So the more expensive ones with the light meter, which is reflective, you can certainly average the scene without taking it and saying, geez, that's really dark down there. I'm going to have to fix that when I get into, sorry. Must be my accountant. But yeah, you can do that. So certainly if you're big into landscapes and stuff or anything that you're photographing that's got a lot of contrast, this will do the job for you. The problem with, as you probably know, with the camera's light meter when you're in situations like that, and you get some really dark shadow areas. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't when you're trying to pull up shadows and the blacks, that you end up with all that ugly noise. I've never had that problem with this one, but then again, I'm not. So any questions on that? How am I doing for time? Way over? I'm going to move on to Flash, unless anybody's got any last questions on Jackson Hole. No, okay. Okay. We can also use these as a flash meter, light meter. And I'm going to try and run through this pretty quickly. When we're shooting with flash, what we do is we do pretty much what we've done with ambient light. So all pretty much the same, except that on here, there's a couple of different modes that you can be in. What we've been talking about, we would be in the first mode, which is ambient light. And then on here, next one is a little lightning bolt. That is for doing flash. Not necessarily. I was going to say studio work, but it's not necessarily. I've got two other modes on this one that I could use, but I've never used. The third one is for cinematography. Anybody that's into doing video, this can help you a lot. The settings are a little bit different for movie shooting and video, and whether you're using a cine camera or whether you're using a digital for video. It works the same, but there's a couple of changes in there. Just as anybody do videos? Good, we can skip right back by that. And there's one, the next one, if you're doing studio work and you've got more than one light, what that would do is if you, let's say you've got 3 light setup, and as you probably know, that not all lights are going to be, or very rarely would you set up all lights for the same power. You'll have your main light, you'll have your fill light, and maybe a hair light, and you want different powers on those. And pretty much the photography community have said that there are certain ratios for those different lights that you put up. So you just like we had done with the ambient, we know how to set ISO, aperture, and get the shutter speed for your main light. But for your fill light, you might want a 2-to-1 ratio. So if we had, let's say, ISO 100, I'm shooting at f8, I want 125th of a second for the shutter speed, and I get my main light set to that. I want a 2-to-1 ratio. What do I set the camera at? How do I know what the ratio is going to be? The headlight might be 3-to-1. How do we set that? This guy will tell you. Once you've set your main light and it knows what it is that you're doing there, bang, press the button, it'll tell you what your ratios, what to set the lights at to get the right ratios. You guys don't do that, so I'm going to move on from there, unless anybody does have a question. It's a really great piece of equipment. Anyway, for most of us, I think we have one light, a speed light, that we won't want to do. So you set it up exactly the same way that you would for ambient, except you set the mode on it to say this is for flash. And you have a trigger on your camera, trigger for the light. Press the test button, it flashes, and it will tell you what the power is of that light. I want F8, and it's coming up and saying you're getting 5.6. So I know on the trigger, okay, I'll change the setting a little bit. Flash again, bang, F8. And you're done. You're ready to go. Just like ambient, you don't have to worry about it after that because you know you've set your light to F8, you've set your camera for F8, and just bang away all day.
Would you stand by the lane or would you stand where you are?
I would stand wherever I am because I'm lazy. No, really.
So you stand where the camera is
You stand where the camera is.
and then fire.
And what I do is I stand probably, yeah, there's a reason that you do it. I would be here and I'd take the meter reading for the light that's over there. Stand where your model is and take with the flash. Let's say that chair's the flash. I'd be over here and I'd go click. Okay, 5, 6, change it a couple of clicks. Take another reading, F8, that's it. Now, the reason I do that is if I stand here and take it, it's going to be a totally different power because we're dealing with the inverse square law. Okay? If I go and take the meter reading from where you are, I'll get a very different reading because of the light drop off, fall off. The further it goes away, so I have to do it exactly where the model is.
Fire.
Yeah.
Model that meter that this one is not a different flash or digital card when this one you can push the button on here and it will flash your flash.
Yeah.
Take a further flash right from the here. This has got to go out to work with go out flash.
Yeah, this one does the same. That square thing there will trigger the flash. I've had this so long I've forgotten what it is, but it's only a specific brand of flash that'll do that. Like Kemp saying his does Godox. You can buy different modules for transmitters. I never used it because I didn't have the model that this one did. It won't help you with ETTL, because ETTL, to know what, tell the camera what it has to do, flash. Oh, okay, I've got it. And that will send your light meter kind of into strange modes. I have heard that I think it's Seconic have come out with a meter. Somebody's come out with a meter that will work with ETTL, but I have no idea what it is, which one that is.
So the flash should be on manual. Like my speed light should be on manual.
Yeah. Yeah, because usually when you're photographing people or whatever, you're taking one shot at a time. Yeah, if you want to take a whole burst of shots, it's not going to work, and it's not going to. You have to get one that does cine if you want to do video, whatever. Like I said, but that's basically what this meter is going to do for you. Oh, there is one other thing that it'll do. The cheaper ones won't, and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, but at least you know what flashes will do. When I take a meter reading with this guy using flash, it'll come up in the corner of the display, it'll come up with something like 70%. And what that's telling me is that the flash contribution to your image is going to be 70% of it, the exposure is going to be based on the flash, which means that 30% is going to be ambient light. So that allows me, if I'm taking a photograph and saying, hey, I want properly exposed, brightly lit, but I want the background to be darkened. I want that, one stop, two stops darker than the subject. I can say, okay, I need to make a change. I need to take that 30% and lower it to 20% or 10%. Conversely, I could say, okay, I want the ambient light to be 40%, 50%. So now you're playing with two different exposure levels. One for your subject and one for whatever it is you're photographing. I want to photograph somebody and I want a totally black background. What I want to do with that is then say, I want to get that percentage to 100% flash and no ambient at all. Now, I know that a lot of people, and I've done it too, I've photographed and said, you know, that would look really good in a black background. Let me go into Lightroom or Photoshop and make the background black. Well, I can do it now by using this because I can set my ISO and my brain dead at this stage. I can set my aperture to what I want it, and then I can go in and say, okay, I usually do 1/25 of a second, and I can look there and that says, okay, yeah, you get 70% flash, 30%, and I can change that shutter speed to the point where everything's black. And when I click the shutter, the only thing that's going to be lit is what the flash is lighting. So I've already done it and I've done it in camera. I don't need to fix anything in post.
How long does it take to handle on all of it?
I think this is my 65th year. No, it doesn't take that long because like I said, last week when I was here with all of this stuff, I read about this stuff and I say, oh, this is what you do. This is what you do. And then I got to go out and shoot because it's rarely, oh yeah, you read it and bang, it's right there. You got to go and practice and say, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? Running out of things. I talked about the contrast function as well, where it'll tell you how to set up your lights. Oh, one last thing that I'm sure is of interest to you guys. You go out and you're doing landscapes. A lot of people do landscapes, right? And you want to use a filter. The problem is going to be that if I take an ambient reading and say, oh, this is what the light meter is telling me, and then I put that into the camera and I take the shot and say, that's not what it's supposed to be, because you might have a filter on there. Now, when you get filters, usually in the stuff we never read, they'll tell you what the composition for that filter is. 1 stop, 2 stops, whatever it might be. In the light meter, you can say, okay, I need some compensation. I've got 2-stop filter on there. And it'll automatically give you the right exposure based on having whatever filter you're using on your lens. It's all great stuff. Okay, quick question for you. How many of you can't wait to get out here and buy a light meter? Other than if you have questions, I'm pretty much through my little, it depends. That's the thing I learned very early in my photography career, if you will, that there's no one thing that's the panacea. Everybody does things, not everybody, but a lot of us do things differently than others, but we end up at the same ending spot. So there's no one way to do anything. And that's why anybody asks me questions, the answer usually starts with, it depends. Yeah. So any last minute questions? No? Bruce?
I want to say thank you. That was very good.
Thank you. Better than last week.
I'd want to suggest,
Thank you.
now, once the,
Yeah.
the whole, whole state in front of me. Okay,
Oh,
what I do is I have the model. And I get it out of the way. That's good. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And Eric, I've actually come for, and you've done, at the last minute, a couple of presentations for us, and here's a tough word with digital photo club. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Can I come back next week? Thank you. That's great. $629. I looked it up last night. Yeah. Yeah, this one, they don't sell anymore. They want you to buy the one that Kemp's got.
I saw one on Amazon, the Kai 308.
Yeah.
Like $219. This is the 308.
Yeah, you'll get them at all price ranges.
Digital and, but, you think that's a good one to start with? Probably.
Well, you know, that's a tricky question because when you say to start with, does that imply that you're leaving it open to getting a more expensive one later? So it's a bit like choosing a camera. You know, if you've already sunk $300 in it and then you say, well, I need these features, you're going to spend $600. So your total outlay is $900. You know, by just a quick one before anybody goes. If anybody's interested in doing light meters and you have questions, feel free to give me a call.
Some call. It's a good news, good idea.
Thank you for giving me those instructions. I use it as only, and I have to make a lot skip. You know, say the word.
Yeah, it does.
And we get frustrated.
We did fine.
They had like a phone.
Yeah.
I got black, yeah, or I just got blocked. Like I got blocked. I didn't. Thank you.
Shoot everything.
You know.
Okay. Hey, we need, let's get back going here. We can do fun.
You don't want to just the
Sorry about your camera incident. You actually had to serve when you came up and you were shooting the video.
Setting them to preview.
But you explain that because I figured I was shooting the surface way out there in the water. You know, that's. I'll tell you, yeah.
At 17 millimeters. It's on the screen, 100 years.
Everything.
It was right after this.
Yeah, it's so strong, but it's.
Okay, we're gonna get started with votes here now.
Okay, thank you for giving us some. Oh, wow. That's the order.
Okay, getting started with photo share. I missed the last meeting, but shortly after the meeting, the July meeting I was able to be at, I stopped out at Wegmans. Wegmans is one of my favorite places to buy flowers. Them and Trader Joe's seem to have really good selection. And I picked up these ranunculus, which are really cool flowers. And as they open, they get larger and they really cool texture and so forth. So I did a number of these, this one. And next, this is a bud that was opening. And I share these on a focus stacking Facebook page that's connected to Helicon Focus, which is the software company that I use to actually do the focus stacking. And they contacted me and said they really liked some of my photos and would like to know if they could get a stack that I have to incorporate into some of their software, and kind of as a demonstration. Because a lot of what they do are like insects and things. I wanted something like this. Unfortunately, after I take these pictures, I delete all of the stacks because it's just too much room on my computer. You know, a stack like this might be 25, photos that are, either 30 or 45 megapixel, and that's a lot of camera. So I did not have this available for them. Then I was playing around with a mirror, and I have a Nautilus shell that we bought years ago down in the Outer Banks. And so I took a few pictures of that, which I kind of like getting that. Just tried it a couple different ways, just kind of playing around with it.
That was on a mirror.
And that was on a mirror with a black background. And this is a begonia. We bought some begonias for a hanging basket. And I'm not sure exactly what the thing is with at times the begonia, they just look like little bumps. But then I was looking at one on my deck and it's kind of opened up and it's, got all these really cool things. And just, this was about a 3x magnification with a lens that I have. And this was focus stacked and I really liked the way that one came out.
Was the shell focus stack also? The
Pardon?
Nautilus?
What's that?
Was it the shell focus stack also?
No. Then I decided to go out to Shenandoah one day. It was probably too warm for what I did, but I went out and I decided to hike the Rose River loop. Started off, I was just going to go out there. I've got a convertible. I was going to put the top down and just kind of drive through Shenandoah because it's really pretty. And then I got to the point, well, maybe if I'm going to go out there, I should go for a hike. And I said, well, if I'm going to go for a hike, I had to hike to a waterfall. So I did the Rose River loop. There wasn't enough water to get a really good waterfall shot, but this is the main falls there. And it was a good hike. I got some nice fungus growing on some stumps, which was good. And then some shots of some flowing water, which I always enjoy doing. And another one,
Tom?
yes,
Do you use an ND variable filter when you're doing those?
I sometimes will use a polarizing filter to take away if there's too much glare. But I had, in this case, I was in enough shade that I could get like a 1/4 second exposure at ISO 50 and, get what I needed without having to I had neutral density filters with me, but I didn't need to use them on these. Then I went to the Outer Banks, and this is a yellow crowned night heron, a juvenile. I've never seen one down there before. I saw one the first night that we were down there, and I got a few nice shots of it on the sound. And so that was a new one for me. And then next morning we had a sunrise, nice sunrise that day. Not enough clouds in the sky for what I would prefer, but it wasn't too bad. Then this was the next morning, we did have more clouds in the sky, and that worked out better. I really do like to have clouds in the sky for a sunrise. And then I had this little guy, I think it's a sandpiper, or I forget what it is. It's a bird. And I like, getting the reflection and the footprints in the sand as it was walking along there.
That background, Tom, was
What?
that the way it was? Or
Yeah, that's the way it was. I was getting all of that yellow light reflections there on the sand. And then that evening we went out, and the sound looked really nice that night. It was calm enough to get good reflections, and got some nice pictures along the sound. Then I drove out to Bodie Island to see the lighthouse. And I got out there when it was still pretty dark. But I was able to get, there was the little crescent moon and some stars around the lighthouse. And I figured out the light on the lighthouse, it'll go for 3 seconds, then it'll be off for 4 seconds, then 3 seconds, then off for 20. And so I want to make sure that I get it lit up for the shot, because that was like about a 4 or 5 second exposure. Well, I had to time it to make sure that I could get the light on whenever I took the lighthouse. And then this is when the sun came up. Was it? And then this is from the other side, looking back at it. So it's a nice lighthouse. Then the next morning I went down to photograph the sunrise at Kitty Hawk Pier, which I've photographed a number of times. I typically try for something like this, trying for like a 1/4 second to a 1/2 second exposure, show the movement. I don't like to freeze the action. So it was a pretty good morning out there. And next, I moved back some, and I was able to get some motion out there, and I'm getting a little sunburst through the pier, which I thought was a pretty cool shot. And after that last shot, that's when I got swamped by a wave, and my camera and I both fell into the water, and my camera died. It was instantly dead. And so I bought a new one, I replaced it, and I am going to get insurance. So then after that, since my camera and wide angle lens were dead, I still had my other camera, which is a 5D Mark IV, and my 100 to 400 millimeter telephoto lens. That's all I had left. So we went back down to the sound that night, and there was an osprey up in the trees. I had been there. There were actually 2 of them up in the trees calling to each other most of the week. And I got out and I got a few nice pictures of the osprey. So it was nice of them to pose for me. And then as we were walking along, there was a blue heron out in the salt grass. And when I first saw it, it was so bright. The sun was still up high enough in the sky. It was really hard to even try to shoot it because the light was so bright coming through the camera that was blinding me. So we walked away for a while and came back when the sun came down lower, and I got this shot. And I'm really, really happy with it. I have printed this one. And came out very, very well. That was shot at 400 millimeters. As the sun was setting. And then this is after the sun was all the way down, and this was shot at 100 millimeters. You can still see the blue heron out there in the same place, but I got the nice glow of the sky afterwards. And then I went to Lewis Ginter, and I managed to get a couple of butterflies while I was out there. So I want to go back out and get some more of those. And then this is my last one. This is another ranunculus that I bought last week. And I took a whole bunch of pictures of it. And then I sent some of them to the people at Helicon Focus, and they liked them, so I sent them a stack that I had done from that. So it worked.
It was our beautiful town. I saw on Facebook. Check that out.
Yeah, I was really, really happy with this. It was like $12 for 6 stems. And I was able to take photographs of those for about really 5 days. Oh, that's cool. Oh, yes. Thank you.
I was a couple weeks ago in Bald Head Island. And that's what they call Old Baldy, that's the lighthouse, they did a multiple exposure and then just kind of. You know, faded out the edges. Well, that was the view from the deck, the sky was just beautiful every day.
Where was this?
It's Bald Head Island, off the coast of North Carolina.
Okay.
Pelicans all over. The first one I saw, I said, oh, a pelican. And my daughter said, yeah, Mom, get used to it. They're all over the place. So excited for the first one. And there's a beautiful marshland. My granddaughter, who's, 22, 23, she wanted to go out on a photo walk with me. And I bought an extra camera, and she really thought it was kind of fun. She wants to get a real camera, believe it or not. So anyhow, that was one of the pictures we took. University, Richmond, just looking up at a building. Raindrops on this, when it gets really moist, the shrubs in front of my house get this white filmy stuff, and the raindrops just got on it. It's very neat. I don't know what that is called, what they sit on. Just raindrops. And a rose at the Gardens. Roses are beautiful spring. And something else somewhere else. I think that's it from me. That's.
Yeah, that's mine. That's about 2 weeks ago. Robert Fife and the Richmond photographer meet up group. We met at the Greek Orthodox Church on Malvern Avenue. And unfortunately, it was limited to only 12 people, first 12 to sign up. So Ling and I both got to go. And that one, I took that standing in the balcony area. Actually, it's where the musicians perform. It's I bracketed it. It's and then I did an HDR on Lightroom. And Lynn's got quite a few she's gonna show. That's the only one I've got. I got the balcony and she got the ground floor and some other things. This is back to soccer, and this one's actually supposed, I didn't get it in there, should be the second one, anyway, this is the consequences of what some unsportsmanlike behavior, fellows getting ready to hit the ground. Next. That's at the Richmond, Kickers, of course, at, City Stadium about 2 weeks ago. And there's the kick that sent him sideways or sent him down. So, of course, the man that did the kicking, he's quite an athlete. He can really project his body up high and control it. There comes the referee. He's excited, trying to catch up. This one I like just because the way the ball's situated. Plus, the screen in the background just intensifies the red and white on the uniforms. But it's funny, it's a little bit of a lag for it to actually appear on the screen. It occurs a little bit faster in real time. Next. This man, I liked his intensity. He's working so hard to get that ball. I had a series, clean show, really, one of them, I had 6 of them. He's really quite an athlete. And speaking of athletes, there's a photographic athlete in the background, and that's Lang standing on the field. And that's more of a snapshot, obviously, but I just wanted to show it to show how she really gets right down on the field. I'm on the other side of the field. I mean, we both do the same thing, but anyway, that's it. That's all I heard.
Okay, this couple of them as we talk when we go to the church. This first time in my life go to an Orthodox church. What they're doing, so I saw everyone walking to this place always take a picture on front. I continue what the back door looks like because that's supposed to. Rob talked about that's architecture. This is a back door. And this is front. We went there, 12 of us. I think everyone first minute is just a statement. You have to ask me, excuse me, could you mind move a little bit? Then you take this. But while they stare at that, I took back picture. I can't take that. I want to look at front and back what this place looks. And then my tripod got trouble. I have not used my tripod for 7 years. One of the legs cannot stabilize. I decided, let me take the picture. I just lie on the floor. Take a picture. Anyway. That's it. But unfortunately, I did not get a chance to study what the Orthodox Church's story is. If you ask me what, I don't know. I'm just taking it. That's it.
These first few are mine. And here's just some birds and I put these together. There are some birds that have
some unique, either stern or grumpy looking, views. And this one, says, look into my eyes, that's what I call that. And this, black vulture down there, I titled this one, "Does this boa make me look fat?" And this just looked like a grumpy looking blue heron. Just. And then talking about grumpy, this guy right here.
What kind of bird is that?
I've got it written down someplace at home. This is from Sylvan.
Okay, Sylvan, yeah.
Yeah.
Put stuff down.
I guess these are mine. That's the waterfront at Georgetown. We took the water taxi from the wharf in DC over to Georgetown, and that's where we were coming into the dock at the water taxi. I took several pictures from the water taxi. It goes up to Potomac, so it's a pretty nice ride. This is the Kennedy Center taken from the water taxi too. Usually don't see them from the river. And Lincoln Memorial, you can just see the tip of the Washington Monument in the background, but it's the backside, but they have these steps leading up from the river to the memorial. This is in Montreal. This is the entertainment district in Montreal. It's St. Catherine Street. There's all kinds of theaters and museums and restaurants, and there are performing arts centers there. And they covered all the bases because I noticed there's a sex shop in that picture. So this is the rotunda at the National Archives. We went to the National Archives on Saturday, and it's interesting. They have signs up saying photography is encouraged, but it's pretty dark in there, and there's no flashes, no tripods. So it's encouraged, but it's not easy. This is it's the back door, like Glenn, of the Notre Dame Basilica in Montreal. And they have the pipe organ up above the entrance. And this is the altar looking the other direction. It's pretty elaborate. We did tabletop photography at Osher, the last meeting we had in the spring. And the interesting thing about this picture is you don't see Peter's hand holding that page of the book there, because I took it out. But this is an exhibit they had at the Branch Museum, and that's the motorcycle from the Walking Dead TV show. And there's it's called, I forgot the name of the company that did the motorcycle. It's Moto, something Moto. It's on the south side of Richmond, and the guy did the certified or classified moto, one of those. Anyway, he did the motorcycle for the show. The lead character in the show's name is Daryl, and that's the motorcycle he rode. And this is the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial from the river again. That's it.
And that is all.
Okay, so our next meeting, is it back here?
Yeah, I think it is.
Is it your?
If what?
Is it here or is it in Chester?
Oh, we couldn't get Chesterfield.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's back here. Okay, at this moment, we do not have a speaker lined up. So if anybody has some ideas for a speaker for next meeting, please let us know. We're glad to set something up. Right now, we can't have anything. We'll try to get that.
I don't know, you've been away and I sent an email about asking Meg Hughes from the Valentine Museum.
I'll look up that
I
email.
saw her in the summer and she
Yeah.
was amenable to that, so.
Okay.
Make her
Yeah.
looking. Just for instance. She was on the.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good.
Thank you.
I guess I'm, that's in time.
Community dinner.